3 months. 3 months since the last big tournament with FLW, but we're back on the water. I'm ready to go. Heading to High Rock Lake. You know, I think it's gonna be tough fishing. I do. Last week's BFL looked like to me maybe about 30 boaters didn't catch a keeper. You know, only a handful of guys had limits. You know, I just think, you know, this spring's been a little different. You know, it's been a lot of rain, and it was kind of slow to warm up in some ways. You know, I think it's going to be tough fishing. You're really, I think, really going to struggle to get the bites you need this week to do well in this tournament. But hey, we're on our way. We're going to grind it out, and we'll see what happens. Well, it's been a frustrating time up here at High Rock. I'm not quite sure what to do or where to go next, but you know, I think the water is messed up. It's mixing a lot out there in the main river. Rain hadn't helped a whole lot, and you know, I'm sure somebody's going to catch me doing what they're supposed to do here in High Rock, which is offshore. I think that's really no secret. And you know, I've caught a couple fish offshore, but nothing that really, you know, makes me think it'd be worth my while to try during a tournament. I don't know. Any ideas, call me. All right, so you can see, I mean, I could catch a few fish. I mean, you know, I was cranking a little bit, and it really didn't do a whole lot. I thought maybe I could catch some fish cranking, but it really didn't work out, so I had to scramble. This is probably my favorite night. Me and Griff got a chance to go out to Outback on my 50th birthday. Alright, so one of my favorite parts, the morning meeting. Just sitting around and talking to some people. Luckily had Jeff Farmer next to me and Griff, and kept us company, but here we are waiting to launch. It's probably 5 o'clock in the morning. Alright, so we ended up with a 42nd place finish. I mean, it was really tough on me. I really struggled to put it together. I had a couple bites. I had 2 great co-anglers. I mean, but you know, it was slow, it was tough, but really, thankfully, we did catch a couple fish. It kept us in the points race. So, tough day, but not a total loss. Alright, so most of these videos that you'll see that I do, I'm going to try to put a with them, you know, what's in it for me. You know, I watch a lot of videos on YouTube as well. A lot of them entertaining. I enjoy watching them, but I certainly want to get something out of it. So I'm going to make a point to put a with them section in for each of my videos. And I think the first thing I want to talk to you about High Rock Lake may surprise you, but it's travel. So, you know, High Rock Lake is a black hole, quite frankly. When you get to High Rock Lake, it's like you've entered this other, you know, existence, and the world seems to end at Tamarack Marina. And you know, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no cell phone signal. You know, the Tamarack Marina itself looks like something out of a 1980s retro movie. It's you know, the gas pumps are the old lever pumps, and but I will tell you, it is a very friendly place. You know, so just understand that travel's going to be a big deal here, and where you stay is like super important. You know, there's no local hotels that I could find. Any place you stay is away from Tamarack Marina. You know, we chose to stay at an Airbnb, and it worked up for us. It wasn't really close, but it wasn't that far away. Certainly you can stay on the lake. I mean, there are houses to rent on the lake. If you want to pay those prices, you got a bunch of guys to go in with you, then good on you. You know, I wasn't going to do it. We ended up going with the Airbnb that wasn't really close, but it wasn't really far away. It worked out for us. I mean, Salisbury, you know, I don't know what the crime situation is like there in Salisbury, North Carolina. I felt safe at the Airbnb that we stayed at. I felt like my tackle and all that stuff would be okay. Certainly security is something that I would consider. And, you know, as far as food goes, there's nothing close. I will tell you, Tamarack Marina makes a pretty awesome burger. They have some really good food there, surprisingly, and there's a little country restaurant across the street. It's only open a few days a week. We ate in there a couple nights. It was really good as well. Mostly fried food. Fried food is great. I love fried food, but my heart doesn't like fried food. If you're going to eat around Tamarack the whole week, I certainly would not check your cholesterol, blood pressure the few days afterwards. But travel is an important part of this. I would also tell your family not to expect a whole lot of phone calls or text messages from you, because we just didn't have a lot of service there. We waited probably 5 or 10 minutes every day in the parking lot there at Tamarack trying to pull up directions to where we had to go. And we figured it out after a couple days, but it was a challenge. And I would just go ahead and tell your family, hey, don't expect a lot of phone calls or text messages from me, because there's no service here. I don't know what service works around Tamarack. Maybe the locals could tell you. I will tell you, Verizon does not. So travel. Just take your time, find a good place to stay, think about your food situation, think about the security, think about how you're going to communicate with your family, because all that is a challenge at High Rock Lake. Second thing I want to talk to you about is, boats, pressure on the lake. So I don't know where everyone comes from around High Rock Lake. I think it's certainly not the local area. However, there seems to be a lot of people on High Rock Lake, and they seem to have a lot of money, and they like to spend it flying up and down High Rock Lake. By 10 o'clock, if you're out there trying to fish, you're going to be overrun. There's a lot of ski boats. There's a lot of jet skis. There's a lot of pontoon boats, completely overloaded with people. There's also a lot of local fishermen out there, either bass fishing or pan fishing. Crappie fishing, from what I understand, is excellent on the lake. So keep in mind, there's a lot of pressure from recreational activities. There's also a lot of fishing pressure, right? There's local tournaments that go out that lake every week. I don't know about 5 days a week, but I'd say, to my knowledge, at least a couple days a week, there's local tournaments that are happening on High Rock Lake, and every weekend. So the pressure is definitely going to be a big deal for you that you need to think about in your game plan at High Rock Lake. As far as, where to fish and how to fish High Rock Lake, in my opinion, there's 4 main creeks on High Rock Lake. I kind of discounted the Yadkin River. I'm sure there's a couple. There's some locals that will spend an enormous amount of time telling you how great the fishing is up the Yadkin. I will tell you, every time I've been there, it's been like chocolate milk up there. It seems like, it's another thing about this lake. It seems like if it rains for 45 minutes or an hour, all the runoff from the tobacco fields and stuff that are up around North Carolina, that rural area, it seems to be in that river within like an hour. I feel like it gets really muddy very quickly. The Yadkin River does, and that mud line kind of creeps down the lake, and the whole lake can certainly turn muddy really, really quick, and it's hard to find clean water. Those 4 creeks, I'm not going to go into the names of those creeks. They're no secret. One of them is clearer than the others. You'll have to kind of figure that out yourself. I'm not saying the fishing is better in that creek. I'm saying the watercolor is clearer in that creek. I think one thing to consider when you go to High Rock Lake is, the water clarity color is a big deal. It's kind of got a dark hue to it, like a brownish hue, even when it's clear. I think most of the lake does, with the exception of that one creek. To me, that limits the lures that are going to work in that lake. Water clarity is something I always take into consideration about where and how I'm going to fish. I don't think that's anything secret. I will tell you, a lot of dark colors when it comes to soft plastics seem to be the deal. The right there where Tamarack Marina is certainly a community hole. There's always a ton of fish around Tamarack Marina. Now, that doesn't mean you can get them to bite. I fell into that trap before and tried to fish around Tamarack Marina for 3 or 4 hours, and I think the last tournament I fished there was 11 o'clock, and I hadn't had a bite. I was like boat 6. I thought, well, let me just fish locally around Tamarack, and I'll catch a limit. No, not even close, right? There were some guys that did that for this tournament. They fished I mean, they literally putted like 30, 40 yards off and started fishing right there next to the off limits area in Tamarack Marina. How did they do? I don't know. I didn't stay around there to find out, but that certainly is always an option when you're fishing High Rock Lake. It's an option that I won't take unless I'm really desperate. But I've heard there's a lot of tournaments won right there around that marina, and I frankly don't doubt it. But it's just a matter of getting those fish to bite. So what worked for me? It was tough, as you saw. So it's not like I really figured out something that was really on fire and I caught a lot of fish doing. I'll go over a few things that worked to me. The first thing that I will tell you that I think you need to have when you fish Tamarack Marina is this right here. It's just a regular old shaky head. It needs to be one. I don't think you need a real light shaky head. There's a lot of rock in that lake from what I could tell. And I think you just need a regular old worm, something that, a darker colored worm. None of the colors are really a secret. I think, black worms or black and blue or June bug worms, even, some of your dark green pumpkins work really well on Tamarack Marina. I've probably caught more fish on this little deal right here than I have anything else, around Tamarack Marina and High Rock itself. I think it's just a pressured lake. There's not a lot of secret honey holes that I know of. There's a million docks. What docks to hit, I don't know. The locals certainly know. I've never really been able to get on a good dock bite there. I think that's one of those things you got to go up there and spend a lot of time on. My practice is always limited. I've caught a few fish off docks there, but not a whole lot. Don't discount it, but the shaky head I think is certainly one of the lures you need to have tied on with some type of dark, soft plastic small worm, and you'll be in good shape. And the second thing I'll show you, and I don't think that worked for me, certainly don't think it's a secret, is a good crankbait. I threw Rapala DT14s. I threw a DT10. Some guys I also threw a Strike King 5XD. That worked very well, and I threw it in kind of bright colors. This is a hot mustard color. I saw David Wright and a couple of the locals. They had looked like to me they had like a kind of bright white shad colored crankbaits tied on. I threw something with a little bit of chartreuse in it. Did it work? I don't know. I had a couple bites on it. Some of my fish did come off these deep diving crankbaits. Do I think the color is a big secret or no? I think anything kind of, chartreuse or white or a mixture of something will work in that kind of off-colored water. And really, that's it. I mean, a shaky head and a crankbait is what I used. Do I think you need to try other things? Yeah, certainly. Guys, there was rumors of guys catching them off top water. I think that's true. I saw some footage where guys catching them off top water. Saw a lot of top water baits tried on. I tried it. I threw buzz baits. I threw your poppers. I threw some frogs. Just kind of your standard fare of top water. Did not have much luck. I also threw a Carolina rig, probably way too much. I threw it to like my elbow came off. I saw guys throwing Carolina rigs. I saw guys catch fish on Carolina rigs. I couldn't make it work. I don't know if kind of the way I was lining up on some of that stuff was off. It probably was. But for me, a crankbait and a shaky head were my money makers in this tournament. Thoughts overall on High Rock Lake. I kind of end it with this. It can be a great lake. I know some of the locals there love it, and I know there's some big fish caught out of it. For me, it's always been a grind. It's always been kind of my nemesis when it comes to, fishing in North Carolina. When this COVID pandemic hit, I thought probably the worst thing that could happen to me was to have a back-to-back on High Rock Lake, and that's exactly what happened. And so I had to deal with it. And luckily, I managed to catch a couple fish. Each tournament, we had back-to-back tournaments on the 13th and 14th of June, I believe it was. and I caught a couple fish every day that kept me from being at the bottom. Surprisingly, I was, I think there was like 140 some boats in these tournaments, and I finished in the 40s both days. So there was a lot of guys that did a lot worse than me. A lot of guys zeroed. That's not good enough. I don't enjoy a 40th place finish. I need to do better. But how do I get there in High Rock Lake? At this point, I'm not so sure. Most people have an avionics card, and I think it's no secret to the humps and points that are on that place. And I will tell you that I've fished them all. Some of the guys I was fishing with fished all of them too, and had very, very little luck as well. I think High Rocks Lake is a place where it's kind of a spot on a spot. When you're looking at these offshore places, and it takes a lot of time to find them. I felt like I found one spot for this tournament that was kind of a spot on a spot, and that's where I managed to catch one good fish off of it every morning with the crankbait. It was never the first few casts. It was 30, 40, 50 casts in the same spot, and then I would catch a fish, and I never could catch more than one fish. And then I kind of ran around with a shaky head the rest of the day, dragging it around, fishing docks, things like that, and managed to have a few other bites. So if you're going to High Rock Lake and you're not familiar with the lake, just know you've got your work cut out for you. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to deal with a lot of pressure. Travel is going to be tough. There's very few creeks to fish. It's not, in my opinion, it's not really a big lake. I think you're going to have to think about how rain and weather is going to affect the overall water clarity on that lake, and you're going to have to deal with a lot of boat pressure. So those are my thoughts. That's the Whiffum. Hopefully you got something out of this. Maybe it gives you a starting point, and I'll see you out there in the water, out here. When you get a chance, check out 911 Custom Lures, Pound Fish Custom, Mercury, Go Boldly, and the Marine Raider Foundation. Thank you. See you next time.